Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me right now. Welcome to the 19th Shaukat Khanum Cancer Symposium session on publishing a manuscript. I'm really excited for this session. Unfortunately, we couldn't have this meeting in person. However, we got it one better. We are hosting the session virtually, so all of you can attend us. Um, Unlike before, as I said, usually we used to do the session in person where we would have someone come in and do a presentation. However, this year we thought we are going to switch things up and we're going to have a more of a panel-based discussion today. So let me just start off by sharing my screen with you. I hope you can all see my screen. So once again, welcome. I'm really excited for this session to be able to do to host this. I see all of my panelists are here. I would really appreciate if they can turn their uh, cameras on, and I'll introduce you shortly. So first, we have for you Peppa Smart. Peppa started her career almost in early 90s, late 80s. She was involved in publishing, and she has been working since then with different publishers as well as journals. She has served in editorial capacity in various journals, different organizations, all limited to publishing manuscripts and books. She, since 2007, has been providing consultancy services to publishers as well as journals. She has been regularly conducting workshops for medical editors of different journals. She has worked with all the big names that are out there. And if that's not it, she has over 50 publications. She has written even a book, which is very much relevant to today's topic of discussion as well. Peppa, welcome. It's a pleasure having you here. Also, we have Dr. Suhail Qureshi. Dr. Qureshi did his PhD from Maine in 1990, and then since then he's been passionately researching and publishing. He has numerous publications. He has worked in UK, Canada, US. Then he came back to Pakistan. He was serving as professor at Aga Khan University, Karachi. He served as professor at Lahore University of Management Sciences, where he thought that that was not it. So he served as a dean for School of Engineering as well as Science and Engineering. And then he thought that he's going to go to Peshawar, where now he's serving as vice chancellor. In addition to that, he also does a lot of workshops for grant writing. He did one for us at Shaukat Khanum a few days ago, which was a pleasure attending. Dr. Suhail, welcome. Again, it's a pleasure having you with us. And we also have Professor Umar Farooq, who I have been picking his brain ever since I've become an editor. He is a managing editor for Journal of Ayub Medical College. Which is, by the way, one of the very few, or Pakistan's first journal that was based out of a college and then ended up being indexed at PubMed. In addition to that, he loves researching. He has more than 30 publications, and he is serving as Dean of Ayub Medical Dental College, Aptabad. Professor Ayub, thank you so much Professor Umar, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure. I hope all of our attendees are going to find you guys really helpful. Unfortunately, we also had one more panelist, Dr. Samir Kazi, but due to his health, he was not able to join us today. It's very unfortunate because this whole idea, which I was talking about, that we have switched from from a presentation-based approach to a more panel-based discussion, was his brainchild. But he couldn't attend today's session. I'm sure he's really bummed about it. So am I. But next year, inshallah, he'll be able to join us. So before we go ahead, I want to establish a few housekeeping rules. So we are going to be having a lot of polls, and I strongly urge everyone to kindly do participate, because the more you'll participate, better outcome we'll have, and that way we'll be able to drive our discussion much more easily. This session we'll have about 8 different polls, which are all going to be relevant to publishing a manuscript. Each poll will be displayed for about 30 seconds. That's when you can respond to it. And then once you have done that, we'll open our discussion and we'll talk about that. In the end, we have a cushion of about 10 to 15 minutes where we'll take question and answers from audience directly. Please use the question and a feature, which is right in the bottom corner of your screen, in the center, where you can type your questions, and in the end, I'll ask panelists about those questions. So let's start with the poll question one. So can we please launch poll right now? So this question that the poll should come up. I think there's some electronic glitch. It should be up soon. So here it is. So how many manuscripts have you published in your professional career? None, 1 to 3, 4 to 10, more than 10. And while our attendees are responding to this poll, I would like to kick things off. And I would like our panelists, Dr. Umar Farooq, let's start with you. If someone comes to you who has not had any experience in publishing manuscripts, and they come to you to your office and they ask you that I want to start off and I'm really interested in publishing, how would you approach this?
Assalamu alaikum. Basically, whenever a lot of people, like our faculty members, usually they approach us, they approach me that they have a manuscript, they did a research, and now they want to get it published. So first of all, I usually ask them that about the I go through their manuscript, whatever they have tried to make it in as an article, and then I usually ask them that where they want to get it published. Have they gone through any journals, and what is their basic objective, and where they see that they should get their article published. In terms of like the type of the journal, as well as the indexation and the quality of the journal. So these are the few things which I discuss with them first, that to see that where actually they target their manuscript to be published, because this is very important, that how they see it, that where they want actually to get it published. So these are the few first things which I discuss with them when they come for getting their manuscript published.
Okay, thank you. So before I move on to the other panelists, I would like to share the results of our question. So about more than 50%, so 60% of our audience today, they have at least published 4 or more manuscripts, which is pretty good. But there is about 40% of us who have either not had any chance of publishing or have had just 1 to 3. So they're relatively new in this field. Peppa, so other than, if I were you, I would have just asked them to read my book. But I know you're more nurturing than that, and you really enjoy teaching. So how would you approach this if someone comes in, let's say one of these folks who have not had chance of publishing at all, and they come to you and they ask you, how are you going to approach this?
Thank you for the question, and thank you very much for asking me to be part of this panel discussion. It's a very good question. And I wish more authors would ask advice before they submit their articles to a journal editor. The first question to ask any researcher is about their research. Have they done their research properly? Do they have a question that their research has answered? And that is the most important thing. If your research is not good, do not bother writing an article. You are wasting your time and you're wasting the editor's time. But if you believe your research is good, in a nutshell, I would say to people, write an article as though you are writing for somebody a few years your junior. And in that way, you can make sure that you are explaining something properly, but you're also explaining it to somebody that is clued up, that knows what is going on, that knows the research area, but that you are explaining it clearly to them. Also, bear in mind that people have very short attention spans. Do not write a 20,000 word article. Nobody is going to read it. There's a very famous statement, and I now can't remember who said this, but it's very famous, is that I'm sorry I wrote you such a long letter. I did not have time to write a shorter one.
Mark Twain.
Thank you. I knew somebody would know the answer. But that is key for any researcher writing an article. 1, make sure your research is good. 2, write your article with clear explanations. But 3, put the article away for a few days, a week maybe, and then come back to the article and shorten it by 25%. Then it will be more attractive to a journal editor. So wow. Journal editors want something that is good research, well written, but really importantly, something that is succinct, something that gets to the point quickly and doesn't ramble around the point. So that's
great. Excellent advice. I'm gonna move to poll question number 2 now. Just one second. Here we go. So, so why should one publish, or what motivates you to publish? So this sort of attracts both of our groups. We'll have the options up soon. So just so that our audience know, you can choose more than one choice right now. So is it to improve your resume, to change practice, to highlight an issue, or to educate others? And I know, Dr. Suhail, what you are going to say to this. You talked about it briefly while you were doing the workshop, but for our audience who unfortunately didn't have a chance to attend your workshop, what would you say? What motivates you to publish?
Shahir, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone, including Pippa here in the UK. You know, I've been very fortunate in that I got into science because I wanted to seek the truth. I wanted to do, you know, experimental stuff, generate evidence, data, and, you know, just purely for the love of what I do, and that love continues. So I think, you know, I mentioned that the other day, that if you're going to publish something, make sure that it's a story that is worth reading, make sure it's airtight. Publishing for the sake of publishing is just a bad idea. There's got to be some passion, some heart involved in that. And world over, the presidents and the provosts and the deans, they're all very frustrated with, you know, too many papers. And the numbers game is being played, you know, all over the world. Meaningful research seems to be thinning. Credibility of scientists is being challenged. Even papers that are published in top-tier journals, there are some reproducibility issues there. HIPAA is much more closer to the action, but I read a lot. It's kind of embarrassing for me, and I think the last 6 months we've seen the COVID stuff. There's been a lot of sloppy science that's been done during this by both pharmaceutical companies and by, you know, investigators, because everybody's in a hurry. Good science requires patience. It requires, you know, a lot of thinking. And hopefully one day soon, the pendulum is going to swing towards, you know, good science. Anyway, there are some solutions to this, believe it or not, but they're cruel ones. Somebody said that each investigator should be given a quota of 20 papers in their life and no more. That's it. You only publish stuff that is significant. And then somebody else said, even more cruel, that for every paper you publish, will you be willing to take a pay cut? And so anyway, I'm a straight from the heart guy. I don't like the numbers game. And one advice that I've always heeded from my teachers is, and I'll repeat what Pippa just said, that, you know, publish good quality stuff. If you don't have a good story, don't publish it, because it's going to get immortalized. You will not be able to delete all. It's going to be there in the archives. Google will remember it, and you will not be able to take that back. And if you do, retraction is the worst possible thing that you can do as a scientist.
So a little bit about our results. So majority do believe this. They publish because they want to highlight an issue. But equally, almost everyone, equally a number of people also think that they publish to improve their resume. And then there is few who believe they want to change practice and educate others, which is pretty good. So my question then goes to Professor Umar. So you work in a medical setting and you do come across these residents or faculty who might be working at a hospital or institute where they end up giving in 60 hours or more than that throughout a week. They're really crammed up. So these are quote unquote the academic clinicians or academic, not academic researchers, but clinical researchers. So for these particular individuals, if they come to you and they want to know that, hey, we are already working so hard, it's very difficult to find time to publish to do the basic work. Why would we want to publish? So how would you approach this and what advice would you give them?
Actually, let's face this reality that most of the people that come across us in a medical school or in a postgraduate medical institution, they come for they want to publish for improving their resume. Mm-hmm. This is a reality, and we have to we have to accept this fact. And some of the people, like a very few, it is contrary to the poll, I think, that some of the people, very few people come up, they want to disseminate, actually share with the scientific community what they have done. Mm-hmm. And yeah, this is a reality, and we face this reality. That is the reason, as Professor Sohail has said, that the quality of the papers which we are receiving, it is going down. The more pressure we are coming under, like for example, the promotion criteria, if it is enhanced that we want to have at least one paper as a first author being published in each year. So what will happen? That, as you said, that most of our clinicians, they have more emphasis on their clinical work, so they will be getting a paper published from any source, from any cost, they want to get it published. So the quality of paper is going down. So this is a reality that most of the people I am facing as an editor, as well as a dean of a medical institute, that the quality of research is not going up. And that's the reason that for being a medical teaching institution, and we are making our own promotion criteria, that we are trying to inculcate such things that to create an environment for the research, so that the people should not only be publishing for improving their resume, but there are other benefits or the attractions attached to it.
Great. So let's go on. I'll move to question number 3. So this is someone who is now developing into the phase of developing a research question. So the poll is that, how do you develop your research question? Do you discuss it with your colleagues, research it on a generalized platform such as Google or a Bing, or you use a research platform? And the reason why, and you can choose either of, you can choose more than one options as you like. So one thing that is sort of a white elephant, which Dr. Suhail and Dr. Umar also pointed out briefly as well, is the white elephant of phishing journals that have started cropping up. The ones that are actually, it doesn't matter if you reject, the more you can find. At least I get at least 10 to 20 emails a day of these different journals that have just been set up. They're all open access. They all have about $1,000 or at least $1,000 of research to them, publishing fee to them that you need to give. So my question for our panelist is that, how do you differentiate between the two? I remember a long time ago when I was attending this course, one of my professors said this line which sort of stuck to me, and I hadn't thought about it before, that it was that everything that's written in black on a piece of paper isn't correct. And that's something that sort of opened my eyes in the context that there's a good research, then there's bad research, and then there's a horrible research. But right now, everything is getting published, and they do pop up on all these platforms. By the way, 82% of our audience does think that they use Google Scholars or PubMed or somewhat a research platform to do their research or develop their idea. And then few of them, a lot of them, almost half of them discuss it with their colleagues as well. So what's your take on, let's start with you, Peppa. So how would you suggest that they should develop their research question? Keeping everything in mind what I talked about.
Yeah, well, I think you've nailed it on the head, because one of the things that a lot of journal editors see, and this comes back to what Professor Farouk was saying, is that because there is such pressure on academics and researchers to publish, people are just doing anything so they can put it in writing and then they can publish it. And then, as you said, they can probably get any rubbish published anywhere, because there is a journal somewhere that will publish your article. And the difficulty is trying to separate out the good quality from the rubbish and the awful quality. Mm-hmm. When you're developing a research question, the main thing to think about is not, can I do this, but why am I doing this? What is the point of this research? And I think here the two elements that have come up here, discussing it with your colleagues. Now that's about almost half of the respondents here on this call are saying that they would discuss it with their colleagues. And I would advocate that you should definitely discuss it with colleagues, or particularly if you are in a more junior position, with your mentor or the head of your department, to discuss where they think there are holes in the research that you need to fill. Looking on a research platform, of course, to find out if there's any research already on this topic and where there is a question that is not answered. I always think with a research question, it is very useful to honestly put it in the context of a question. You know, why are so many babies dying before they reach first term? You know, that's a question. And then you can then break that down. You don't want to do research just because, you know, it seems like a good idea, or somebody has some data that you think you can analyze. And to find that question, you know, seeing what has already been published and then discussing it with colleagues is, you know, I think is an excellent idea. I would do both. I would not do either or.
Great idea. Great advice. Professor Sohail, I know you talked about an incident which happened with you while you were in UK regarding English tea while you were on your tea break. Which sort of resonates with exactly what Peppa just talked about. Do you mind sharing that with the audience? Sorry for putting you in the spotlight, but that's why I'm here.
I spent several years at the University of Cambridge at the Wellcome CRC Institute, and now that's Cancer Research UK. And at that time, the director of the institute was Sir John Gurdon. And for those of you who know him, he won the Nobel Prize for stem cells research for a paper that he published in the 60s. In fact, he was the first one who cloned a frog in the 60s, and then the stem cell stuff with Yamanaka and others. So this is, I think, around 1995. I was having tea in the tea room and sitting next to John. And John was having his digestive biscuits, which is very English thing. And so, you know, we started talking, and we were talking about science, and John all of a sudden said, well, have you ever wondered why a small country like the UK has generated so many Nobel laureates, has produced so many remarkable scientists? And, you know, I couldn't come up with an explanation. And he said, he raised his cup of tea and he said, it has to do with the tea break, the 10:30 tea break and the 3:30 tea break. Meeting of the minds, sharing ideas, applying friction to them, and then, you know, coming up with, you know, better ideas. And it's really important that meeting of the minds, first thing is meeting, and then the next phases are storming. That once you're onto a good idea, then, you know, put it through a storm, get a few people together, apply more friction to it, just to make sure that shine comes out of it. And I mentioned that during my grant writing workshop, that more of that needs to happen. That in institutions where there is synergy, where people are, you know, talking and working together, they're the ones who will come out ahead. But How do you generate an idea? Well, for a scientist, it all starts with observation. Newton's apple, Darwin's finches during Galapagos, during his trip on the Beagle. So, this is what we do. We observe things. And we are investigators. We're investigating a problem, a phenomenon. And you're asking the why question. And, somebody wisely said that during the early part of our life, we get graded on the quality of answers we provide. Later in life, our successes are measured by the quality of the questions we ask. And so the first thing is curiosity, some passion towards solving a problem. It could come from being in a social circle where somebody has a condition and you really want to help all the people who are suffering from that condition. Then you're focused and you go into the library or you hit the literature and you start reading more about it. That's one thing. But the other one is that what is it that really attracts you? If you were to given a journal, what kind of papers would interest you? So the first thing is, getting hooked onto an area, starting out broad. Are you interested in neuroscience? Are you interested in, microbiology or, bioinformatics, large data, networks? I mean, biology is such a vast umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is you got to figure out, what area within the life sciences is really fascinating. And you start out broad, and then there will be a period, sometimes an extended period, where you are reading. And while you're doing that, then, you begin to focus. So if you're a neuroscience person, you can think about basic neuroscience, synaptic transmission, how do neurotransmitters work? And, just mapping out the entire, cellular landscape of the nervous system. That would be extremely basic. And the other one would be epilepsy, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. It's still neuroscience. And so I would, that's what I've done. If I go into a new area, I'll say, okay, well, these days I'm very interested in transgenerational inheritance. That how angry parents' offspring are also likely to be angry. And we're trying to figure out the underlying mechanism of how a behavior it will get transmitted into your germ cells. Mm-hmm. So, behavior, anger, or anxiety, or whatever, those behaviors, and then, and there's some recent data, and you're trying to figure out the mechanism. So the question is, then how do these behavioral traits get transmitted? And so once you have that, then you've got your colleagues. And lucky among us are those who've got, good colleagues, people who are, intelligent, who are willing to learn and, give their feedback. And then you start talking about this, and you talk about it, and you talk about it. And then there's, hey, why don't I think of that? Hey, this is great. There's a lot of those hays. And eventually they all culminate into an idea, which is unanswered. And there's a burning need to address that idea. Also, I think the Newton's apple and Darwin's finches, there are people out there, for example, the guy who won the Nobel Prize for green fluorescent protein, mm-hmm. Or for, fluorescein. There was an inherent fascination with, fireflies. Why do they glow? What kind of a chemical reaction that's going on inside them? And it was that led him to discovering the protein that when it's excited with the ultraviolet light, it emits, fluorescence. And, he did it for the love of science, and he won the Nobel Prize. It's like, wow, that's remarkable. So I think these are journeys that are, I think, very satisfying because, you're discovering something, you're adding to a body of knowledge. I find that in medical colleges, there's too much retrospective research that's going on. There's not much, wet lab stuff. That's data that's there in the hospital that the doctors have collected, or, And then a medical student will come in and say, hey, let me look at that data and, come up with something. There's nothing wrong with that, but, I think much of that is being done because students, residents think that having one or two papers are going to increase their chances of better placements after they graduate. Sorry, Sharia, this has been a long
No.
answer
That's
to this.
I am I'm really happy that we talked about a lot of things here. I know there are certain questions that are coming up from our audience. I would like them to hang on. So we will take all those questions, or we'll try to take as many as we can, but at the end of the session. So right now we are going to have these polls, and at the end of the polls, we're going to have all the question and answers. So let's move on to the next poll. Which is again is what we a little bit talked about right now. How do you shortlist the right journal for your manuscript? Again, you can choose more than one option here. You select, you choose from the list of references which you have already cited in your paper. Do you browse publisher directory? So BMJ, Lancet, Nature, they all have them. Do you use some sort of online tool such as a manuscript matcher? Now almost every one of them have it. Or you select a society or institute or affiliated journal. The reason I have put these up, so I'm going to come to Dr. Umar Farooq now. So I know there is a respectable journal, then there is a relevant journal, which are sort of two things, but we almost always somewhat, combine them together. If again, you said earlier that a lot of colleagues of yours, they come to your office and they ask you that, can you review this paper for us? And you ask them, where do you want to send it? And a lot of times I feel that my colleagues don't know the answer to that, or my students don't know the answer to that. So how would you approach this issue?
Shahryar, just to add into the previous poll, just
please.
People sometimes people come to me and they say that they want to get an article published. So what should they do? So if I ask them, have they done any research? So they said, no, we haven't done research yet, but we want to get an article published. So so first I asked them, you have to do a research, then you can get it published. So we usually come across these type of people as well. So so when a person comes with us who has done a research, and even he has gone through this process of writing a manuscript, and they want to discuss it with us, where should we submit it? So there are two important things. That one is the relevance of the topic to the journal, as well as the quality of the journal, indexation, or its repute, or you can say people go for the impact factor. So what I feel there should be a combination of both. Relevance is important. If the journal is not relevant to what you have done, first of all, you will not get it published. So they will decline the publication. So important thing is, you should shortlist the journals which are relevant to what you want to get published, what you have studied, the study which you have done. And then from among those journals, you are going to go through, discuss it with your colleagues, a senior colleague,